it's now commonplace for normal people to just say, yeah, the CIA and the FBI probably staged this. That's now normal.
I mean,
like that's like just accepted by all of us right now.
It's not. They're not. I don't even know how to describe because it's so ludicrous. It's so ludicrous. They're
so
not
bad.
making it easy for people to not think that they're somehow complicit. The Secret Service, the FBI. I mean, I almost have to say it daily. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but
how do you do it? How do you do it when everybody? So whether it's PBD, Ben, Candace, you name the podcast right now. It's just like, yeah, probably was our government trying to kill him. Like the deep state actually was trying to kill him.
The craziest thing, as of recently, like just last night or even this morning, is big tech suppressing
Google, right?
Google searches.
Yeah.
And the elevation of certain news stories at the same time.
Yeah, what was it that when you put in Trump assassination, it wouldn't autofill or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was showing Donald Duck, assassination of Donald Duck, and then it was Donald Reagan. Like
So we're back to that.
I don't believe hardly any of it anymore.
Yeah, and Elon Musk just
that's
threw,
a scary thing.
Yeah,
too.
Elon Musk just threw Google under the bus. Larry Page.
I'm having a hard time with my mic.
That's all right. Welcome.
Maybe it's just me.
Can we do a welcome?
I kind of stopped doing welcomes.
No, let's just go.
And just kind of go.
Yeah.
And I don't think nobody's complained about it yet.
No one cares.
If you have a complaint,
yeah, don't worry about it.
I don't care.
Welcome. So it's been a
minute.
Well, it's been a minute. It's been 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? Which is apparently a minute. The whole world has changed.
2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. I mean, you just can't. The amount of things that keep coming down, and one has to think maybe that is by design.
Yeah.
You flood so much information out there, you don't really know what is going on or what to believe.
Yeah.
And I think, another thing that's just coming out is Venezuela.
What's happened? I didn't hear that.
They voted for, they had their presidential election yesterday.
Yep.
Or last night, our time. And Maduro, who is seeking a third 6-year term. I think they do 6-year terms there. And there's widespread election fraud alleged. Exit polling
by our CIA.
Shows probably. I would hope not, because this guy is pretty extreme, sort of left wing communist.
I don't think we care.
Well, the I shouldn't say the joke, but the line is, you can vote your way into communism, but you'll never vote your way out of it.
Got it. Oh, that's I get
right.
It. Yeah.
And that's sort of what's playing out in Venezuela right now with Maduro, and this guy has been ousted. And the exit polling is showing like 60% for the newcomer. And I can't even tell you, Gonzalez maybe.
Non-communist newcomer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the country has overwhelmingly like 60% or more, and the exit polling is showing. And then the official state election results are showing a 51% Maduro win. So, and I haven't checked recently to see exactly what's going on, but I know that Venezuelans are not happy about it. And you see this sort of totalitarian, authoritarian regime down in Venezuela sort of freaking out.
Yeah.
And they sent in kind of some Gestapo, kind of like a bike gang or some crazy thing to shut down some of these polling locations. And of course, the parallel is trying to be drawn, well, this is coming to America next. And I think that's a little bit of hyperbole.
Sure.
But at some point, there kind of could be a line drawn between, what we were just saying about all of this information and then government stepping in and suppressing some information while elevating other information via these tech companies.
Yeah.
So much so that I think Musk is even considering starting his own search engine now.
Wow. So to compete with Google.
To compete with Google.
Yeah. And basically the branding, just like he's doing with AI.
Yeah.
So he's doing the same thing with AI and creating, was it Grok?
Grok. Yeah.
And so I watched the Jordan Peterson Elon Musk interview.
Yeah.
And he had just stayed up till like 5 a.m. finishing Grok 3.0, even though 2.0 hasn't come out yet.
Sounds right.
And pretty fascinating, the vision for that, right? And then he went through a quick history of OpenAI, and then Google, is it Gemini?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. And I thought it was fascinating, Elon Musk giving us an inside view on his personal life. He would just go stay on Larry Page's couch, which I don't know if a home owned by Larry Page has couches like that you'd sleep on.
Right.
Like, come sleep on my $100,000 couch. But
Right.
Whatever. So Elon would just go over there and hang with Larry, and got really fed up, I don't know, 8, 9, 5, whatever years ago, listening to him talk about AI and realizing there was a very clear clash between them two. And now that has evolved into Elon coming up with his own. So, okay, so where do we start? I think we started at, it's commonplace right now for everybody to just say, yeah, what happened with the assassination, that's actually the deep, like, before, if we were to say, yeah, the deep state or whatever this is, they don't like Trump, they're going to do everything they can to get against him. But no, it wouldn't just become commonplace to say, yeah, they're the ones who are going to kill, like, they're going to try to kill him. Like, that's a different level. And no one would, I don't think, like, I don't say dare say it, but you wouldn't. But it's just normal.
Listen,
I've been shocked by that. Like, I've been shocked by
there's a reason why the
how
JFK
general.
files
Yes.
have not been fully released, including Trump, who
Including Trump.
claimed that he was going to release them all
And didn't.
and didn't. The magic bullet theory.
Yeah.
Apparently, physics doesn't come into play during assassination attempts. I mean, these are the same people. You know, when you the Warren Commission, that whole show, basically put credence to that entire theory of a lone gunman. Right, which was the entire thesis of that entire situation. Now, I don't think anybody was banking on Abraham Zapruder being there and filming the actual headshots. And I think, and this is just my opinion, but in the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt, I think they were so confident that they were going to get a headshot on, somebody was going to get a headshot on Trump.
Yeah.
That the rest of it didn't really matter. Nobody was going to inquire about whether or not Secret Service had a formal meeting with the local SWAT team, as is now being reported. All of these crazy little things. I don't think...
Because the news of Trump being assassinated would have dominated, and it would have been months until the actual investigation, everything like that, and that was a wash by then.
What would have happened? Who has gone through mental exercises to try and extrapolate what would have happened? Of course, we don't fully know, but what would have happened if Trump had been shot in right? I mean, that's a kill shot.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can get shot in the head and survived. It has happened.
Yeah.
But
that's a kill shot.
Right. I mean,
what do you think? So let's do something of it, because I want what we're saying to have some fairly good interest, because obviously so many people have covered this to nauseum. But in your mind, what does that look like? What does that look like today? 2 weeks or whatever, 3 weeks after the fact, 2 weeks after the fact.
Man, honestly, I really don't know. because they've convoluted things with the January 6th insurrection stuff. So you don't really know how violent the right wing actually is, right? And we know extreme right wingers, right? We, you know,
sure,
in history, we've seen how violent they can be. Yes.
Yeah. But it really is a minority of people.
It is, absolutely.
I mean, like 0.05% or something like that. It's a...
And people that own guns are not right-wing extremists, right? I have a gun. Sure. I'm not a gun nut, but I know plenty of gun nuts. My neighbor's a gun nut.
Yeah.
Guess where I'm going? If you know, it's just...
Exactly.
It is what it is. But
I wish I was better at that stuff.
I really do think that there would have been some kind of response from Trump supporters, and I struggled to figure out exactly what that would be.
Interesting. I think it's a great question.
It's hard to think that organizations like maybe the Proud Boys or some that are even more right wing than that wouldn't take to doing some violent stuff. I don't know.
But even if they did, I don't think it could even come close to outperforming what Antifa did, because it's not nearly as large, not nearly as organized, and not nearly as funded, right? So when Antifa did all of the stuff, what was it, 2020, and all the riots,
right?
Like, okay,
mostly peaceful.
Mostly peaceful. So
the
I don't.
The media played a
the only
big thing in
the
that
only reason this would be civil war is if the 99% of other people who are in the, I don't even call it the right wing camp. I'm going to call it the camp of just logical thinking and realizing like, oh, we're being played here, right? And this doesn't make sense. If that group, but that group would have to be somehow like there'd have to be some sort of organization. Or at the first attempt is who's the next person to fulfill or to step into Trump's role. So here's a good question: who would have stepped into Trump's role as the presumptive?
Right, great. Another great exercise and a conversation worth having is, okay, heaven for, even if he had been wounded to the point where
he couldn't go on.
Yeah. Which plenty of people have actually wished for, which kind of just blows my mind and shows how ridiculous and immature people are these days.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm not going to give people much credit. I've learned a lot in life to lower my expectations of people. Yeah. And so it's interesting when you get into a tribalistic, tight mentality, which I think the left and right have veered towards that.
Definitely.
It's really easy just to be stupid.
Yeah.
Like really, really dumb. Willfully stupid. And I don't put them past them.
I think critical thinking is kind of at an all-time low. And has been at least for the last 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, critical thinking has been replaced by basically here's what to think.
But then the critical thinkers are banding together more right now. You see that with podcasts like this and like other big podcasts.
And that's, you know, to my point a little bit ago, you know, the media narrative around everything. So back to your question about who would replace, what would happen?
Yeah.
Who would replace? What's interesting right now is RFK is getting a little bit of a bump.
Yes.
And what would be interesting is if those people would be more endeared to the Kennedy family because of the assassinations.
Yeah.
RFK Jr.'s got, some good things to say. He's got, some bad things to say. I like what he's saying on crypto right now, which is something that nobody else is saying.
What's he saying?
Government needs to get into the crypto business and invest in crypto. In the next 30 years, if we get into crypto now, we can wipe out the national debt. Wow. Is basically what, and spur, it'll bring in new investment into the country. Yeah. China, Russia, these other companies will want to start exchanging Bitcoin. But what he's actually drawing a comparison more, bringing it even to the dollar, boosting the dollar, because we're trading Bitcoin through the government.
Yeah.
So, but I think he may have got. But if it had to be a Republican, does Ron DeSantis come back into play? Maybe. I don't know.
I don't think he's strong enough. And I don't think they would think that. Because I think this is an interesting topic. I don't think a lot of people have covered. I haven't seen a podcast on who would have replaced Donald Trump, right? You see the podcast on what would have happened, like, Civil War and this and this. It's like, okay, maybe not though.
Nikki Haley?
Yeah, but is it somebody like an Elon?
I mean, it could be.
You think about it. In my mind, something that staggering, what would it take for quote unquote civil war? Civil war is such like a drastic term.
Yeah.
What would it take for a very large counter response from not happening? If a person big enough stepped in and took leadership. And I think he has the personality to do something like that. And I think the Republican Party is in a place where it's a billionaire. Right. You've now trusted Elon because Elon's stuck up and done some things. Mm-hmm. To me, I feel like it's somebody like an Elon Musk who would have stepped in.
Interesting. I hadn't even considered that.
Think about it.
I wonder if he would even consider it.
I think he would. I don't think he cares about his wealth like we think we would care about our wealth if we were his wealth.
I don't think he does either. I think he. What would be interesting is if he did, what would that do to his government contracts? What would that do to the rest of his?
Dude, I looked into that
private business and
government contracts is interesting.
Free
like
speech
Google
is kind of a big deal, and he bought Twitter, and I mean he 80% of the staff there. Yeah. And you can say what you want about how to run a corporation. I think he's proven that he kind of knows what he's doing. But I think if you asked him, he would say the majority of those positions were in sort of the censorship side of things. Yeah. I know that Twitter has changed immensely.
Huge.
I've been on that platform since 2008, 2009, got away from it because it was just a cesspool for the longest time, and actually dipped my toes back in because it was a cesspool, and to shine a light on how ridiculous and emotional people are even when presented with new information. And again, like you're saying, that I call it indoctrination, when they just they're so ingrained in a belief system or in an idea, even though all of the evidence is sitting there right in front of them from history, you cannot get through to them. Yeah. And it's gotten so much worse, but I think it is a fascinating exercise to go through and see who, and it should be something that the Republicans are doing, because even if Trump does win now,
I know,
got 4 years.
I know
who's next up to bat,
and you need somebody who's strong.
That's the one good thing with Biden finally stepping down, which I think is such hypocrisy for these people, for anybody that is saying this election is about democracy, Biden-Harris. Not a single primary vote was cast for Kamala Harris.
But in tribal mentality, that doesn't matter. All they did was they had a really, really savvy marketing firm tell them that it will energize your base and it will regain all those. I mean, let me say, like, there was the white women who voted Biden in over Trump. Yeah. And it's going to also go through that same route to try to get those people back on board.
And I find it fascinating that we're in a time now where we are basing decisions on a person's race.
I know.
And a person's sex.
Yep.
Still
Yep. More so.
I cannot take any of these people seriously.
No.
When you try and have this argument, democracy is on the ballot, da 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 da. To me, I'm making the argument this is more like an oligarchy.
Yeah.
Or a plutocracy. And
define plutocracy.
Well, so they're sort of a little bit interchangeable in ways, but oligarchy is kind of where corporations or large interest groups coalesce together,
right,
and basically have no interest in the will of the people, right, which is what our founding fathers wanted, right? And plutocracy is sort of the same thing if I'm getting it right. Plutocracy moves over more towards the organizational side of things, I think.
Sure.
But clearly, neither one of those are what our founding fathers had intended. So when you have a presidential candidate that put himself on the ballot again, didn't have an open primary, right? You can have an argument about whether they should have had an open primary. He said, nope. And then everybody jumped on board behind it. Yep. He's not too old. He's not too old. He's not too old. He's not too old.
Yeah.
He might be too old.
Bait and switch.
He might be too old. What are we going to do? He might be too old.
Yeah.
And it's 100 days out from the election.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
We have
a person of color. We have a woman that's his ticket right behind him. How do we not put her in that position of power? Democracy is on the ballot.
Here's the other
power.
Question. Okay.
It's ludicrous.
If Trump...
And I would say the same thing if the Republicans were trying to do
100%.
it too. And listen, there's the argument about the same thing with Trump, right? Democracy is on the ballot. Okay, so they're using clips from him in Minnesota the other day where he said, all you got to do is vote this time, and in 4 years we'll have it all fixed, and you won't have to vote anymore. So this is the clip that they're now using, saying, "Look, we told you he's going to stay in power beyond blah 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 whatever." Well, if you see the full clip, he's actually making a joke.
Right, of course.
Couple that with the January 6th stuff.
Yeah.
But how do you reconcile the fact that Joe Biden was sworn into office?
But none of that...
You just can't... I can't take any of it serious.
No, because none of it's logical. So you almost have to fight it with other illogical arguments. To think that you're going to persuade somebody with a logical argument on the other side is actually counterproductive, because you have to actually think.
You cannot, in my opinion, in the last 4 years has taught me this, you cannot counter an emotional argument with logic.
Correct.
Whatsoever.
No. You have to counter it with something emotional that then leads them to a logical position.
I have found most often when people are already in that place of an emotional argument, it is so difficult.
Yeah.
Because again, they are so invested in that construct or that idea or that, the vaccine or the mask or the you staying 6 feet away from me or any of this kind of silly stuff makes any difference.
I know.
So, I don't know. Critical thinkers. Where are you?
There's more of them now, though.
Where have the reasonable adults gone?
There's more of them, though.
Right?
Yeah.
Why can't we have disagreements and still be friends?
Well, okay. So, number one, remember in 2020, everything went down. I remember watching an episode of Steven Crowder, and he really called out pastors of churches. And we're like, where were you in the lockdowns? Like, why didn't you have the guts to actually... okay, I understand the first couple months. I think everybody does. No one knew what was going on. We were all trying to figure this out. Is this the Black Plague? Maybe it is, right? And so it was of course we're going to have...
you know what, man? I love you, bro.
Yeah.
You're giving way too much credit. I called bullshit the first time I read the executive orders, right? And like you said, this is from Governor Whitmer. And how the first, whatever.
Or from our federal.
No,
for 30 days.
From our governor, the March 14th or whatever,
Yeah.
her first executive orders shutting down restaurants, saying, and I should find it because it's just so ludicrous, right? Don't pick your nose, don't put your fingers in your eyes, cough into your elbow, stay 6 feet away, wear at least one face covering. It wasn't even a mask at the time, it was a face covering.
Yeah.
You know, this list of things that was going to save lives. Which is it? It's either the most viral, most deadly thing we've come across in our lifetime.
Yeah.
Or it's something that we're going to sneeze into our elbows and save us from.
Right.
I could not reconcile those two things.
You're right.
But
which is why you did what you did.
Social pressure.
Which is why you did what you did, and no one else did.
The social, but I have to say,
I know
the social pressure and the unknowingness of the entire situation. We closed down.
Everybody
did the right thing, which I want to vomit every time somebody says that. And I mean, just yesterday, somebody was like, "Oh, apparently you didn't think, bodies stacking up in the morgue was a big deal." And it's like, are we still doing this? Are we still doing this? What about heart disease? Why aren't you on the train for heart disease? That's the number one killer in America is heart disease. Like, I can't take these people seriously. So when you get so ingrained, you're so invested in a construct.
I agree.
You're down that hole in an emotional argument, and we've got to figure out a way to sort of pluck them back up into reality and this world of logic that we sort of used to all share in.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're getting siloed outside of it, and we just cannot, those of us kind of in the middle, I guess, if we can say, are just kind of like, yo, come back to the table.
So, but going back to the
and explain to me how this is democracy.
Yeah,
putting a person up there that.
So going back to that pastor comment, and I said that because you would think in 2020, the people. So I've lived a lot of my life in that world, right? Of the kind of evangelical Christian space, and you would think that group would resoundingly be the group that, when logic was able to be okay, so let's just I understand what you're saying. One, I respect it, and you were way ahead of me. But let's just give them the 30 days. All right, let's give them the argument of we're gonna follow along to do the right thing, because if it's not, then I see the other argument spiritually. We're being a detriment to people.
Sure.
Okay. So I understand that line people were towing. Okay. But once it became very clear what was happening, it was months and months and months. And then the second shutdown came along. And you heard very little response from the evangelical community to rise up against it. Instead, it was like, okay, well, we kind of got used to this doing Zoom church services. Like, it's like, whoa, time out. Not that you have to be even political about this, but like spiritually, you're asked to not stop meeting together in worship. Like, that's a biblical principle and mandate. There are people, persecution is worse now than it has been in hundreds and hundreds of years.
Sure.
And there are people dying for their faith all the time in countries that do not allow this. And we're sitting here saying, oh, because we don't want to hurt somebody's feelings, or we don't want to come across bad to the world.
Right.
We're not willing to get together, even though getting together, we know, right? And even biblically, you're told, well, I don't want to get blasphemous here, but I'm not. You're told that if a law goes against what God commands you to do, it is still God first. So getting together, you should be willing to still get together, even though you're not allowed to, because the first allegiance is more important than the second allegiance.
Sure.
Especially on something so basic, right?
Yeah.
And logical.
Yeah.
And that's one of my questions. I do see that group of voters, or that group of people, I do believe it's taken a while, but I think more of them have caught up to reality now than then, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay.
It's fascinating. I sometimes just want to rip my hair out reading, smart people
I already have.
say
You know?
dumb. It's great. Say just the dumbest thing is just so hypocritical and backwards, and it's just like that's not what you just said a week ago. Like I can't. I can't take any of these people seriously, and I don't know what that means long term. I really don't.
Yeah.
But this is just another reason why I don't think I could ever get into politics. And I've been asked to, and it's just I don't think I really ever could.